Stephanie, thank you. Across the U.S. and beyond its borders, President Donald Trump is cracking down on illegal immigration.
Yeah, ICE reports nearly 1,000 arrests in a single day and more than 500 detainees on Sunday. These numbers include arrests and detainees here in Metro Atlanta. 11 Alive's Liza Lucas is standing by as we learn more information on some of those local arrests. Liza, we're learning about operations from Atlanta even to Savannah.
Good morning, Ariana. Good morning, Aisha. And we should note that ICE is reporting these as, quote, targeted operations, as you mentioned, everywhere from Cartersville to Atlanta to Savannah. Now, we don't have metro-specific numbers yet in terms of those arrests, but as you mentioned, they are certainly adding up across the country. And a lot of these encounters, these arrests have been captured on camera, even shared on the social media pages of various agents.
What began as Black Friday chaos quickly turned into something else entirely. ICE agents, backed by federal SWAT teams, stormed a packed Atlanta shopping mall, detaining more than 2,000 migrants in a high-speed raid. Shoppers froze. Families were split. And the scene, once filled with sales and music, was replaced by sirens, screaming, and confusion. Federal officials later confirmed the operation had been months in the making. But for those inside, it came out of nowhere. And it didn't feel like immigration enforcement. It felt like a siege.
6:42 here on the East Coast, and welcome back to Live Now from Fox. Right now, I want to head out to the Peach State of Georgia. In Brookhaven, 6 people were arrested during an anti-ICE protest. Police saying the protesters damaged 3 squad cars as they threw rocks and set off fireworks. Officers using tear gas to disperse the crowd. Right now, we're going to check in with Fox 5 Atlanta's Mark Teichner. He joins us live in Brookhaven with this developing story. Mark, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Brookhaven, a suburb of Atlanta, and the police here had found out about this protest, and they contacted the organizers and said everything had to wrap up by 9:30 last night. Well, the organizers agreed, and they actually left at 9 o'clock. It was some remaining stragglers that stayed and ended up in a confrontation with law enforcement.
The scale was overwhelming. SWAT teams moved through the mall's crowds like a live drill, tactically, efficiently, without hesitation. ICE's target list, compiled using surveillance and public records, allowed them to identify and detain individuals with little resistance. Arrests were made across multiple levels, in food courts, fitting rooms, even near children's play areas. Critics immediately questioned the decision to use such force in a public space. Black Friday had become a battlefield, and no one saw it coming. Inside, shoppers hid behind counters. Employees locked store gates. Some people thought it was a terrorist attack. Others just froze in disbelief. One witness described a mother being dragged from her kids. Her screams echoed across the floor. Another said they were ordered to stay inside while armed agents swept through the building. For those trapped inside, it felt like the outside world had disappeared, and the mall, normally a holiday escape, had become a cage of fear.
Welcome back to Live Now from Fox. I'm Stephanie Quinu. This is another live look right here of the White House as President Trump's administration officials, including border czar Tom Homan and the acting deputy attorney general, visited Chicago on Sunday to witness the start of increased immigration enforcement. Immigration and Customs Enforcement saying that it made 956 arrests nationwide on Sunday. Meanwhile, immigration raids were also made in Georgia. Federal officials say they took people into custody in Atlanta, Cartersville, and Savannah, although no word as to how many were detained in those raids. Good Day's Mark Teichner picks up our developing story live from the ICE Atlanta field office in downtown Atlanta. Good morning to you, Mark.
Yeah, good morning. We'd heard rumors that these raids were taking place, but it wasn't until yesterday afternoon that the folks here at ICE confirmed that that was, in fact, the case.
Sunday, federal agents take suspected illegal immigrants into custody during a series of...
Now legal experts are weighing in, and the questions are growing louder. Was this level of force justified? Was it constitutional? And where does due process begin when arrests happen without warning in public malls? Civil rights groups are calling it excessive. ICE is calling it effective. But one thing's clear. This was no ordinary sweep. And if it's the new standard, every public space could be next.
Tens of thousands of Americans taking to the streets, protesting the Trump administration's arrest and deportation of illegal immigrants.
Well, tonight, downtown Los Angeles is under curfew. President Trump has deployed 4,000 National Guard troops and 700 active duty Marines to help manage the crowds. In Chicago, someone drove a car through a crowd of protesters, nearly hitting dozens of them. And in New York, protesters shut down city streets.
Everyone with a clear message to stop the detentions and arrests. We've seen a handful of protests here in Georgia, too, and tonight hundreds of protesters gathered at Northeast Plaza on Buford Highway in Brookhaven. There was at least one arrest that we know of.
Despite that arrest, the protest has remained peaceful, we're told. But within the last half hour, police have told protesters to leave or face arrest. That's where we find Fox 5's Christopher King tonight. Christopher, what more can you tell us?
Well, Russ, Courtney, there are lots of police out here, and there's a massive row of police cars out here. Just take a look over here. Police, a short time ago, as you were mentioning, telling the crowd to leave. Police say they could arrest protesters and use physical or chemical methods to disperse them. Now, we just heard some type of explosion a while back. Don't know what it was. There were hundreds, if not thousands, of protesters out here. They're largely moving on down Buford Highway. They packed Buford Highway and Briarwood Road, many carrying signs and chanting. They're calling for an end to mass deportations. Police from Brookhaven, Chamblee, and Georgia State Patrol are out here. Some were in riot gear. The people are passionate, they're loud, but they're peaceful. So far, we've only confirmed one arrest.
Mall executives say they were notified just before agents arrived, leaving no time for preparation, safety protocols, or even a proper evacuation. Store owners watched their businesses empty out in minutes. Staff abandoned registers. Holiday shoppers fled. Others were stuck inside with no idea what was going on. What was supposed to be a record-setting retail day turned into a disaster, one that nobody was ready for.
Now, the arrests are part of an offensive launched by President Donald Trump's administration to detain and deport undocumented immigrants. But Georgia's NAACP President Gerald Briggs says he wants to see the focus of this administration elsewhere.
Throughout this week, the heroes of ICE have been hunting down and arresting hundreds of illegal alien criminals.
The last time I checked, people were concerned about the economy, concerned about the price of gas, the price of eggs.
And ICE says they are working in partnership with the DEA, FBI, and ATF on these operations. Live from the Atlanta ICE field office, Sarah Hammond for Atlanta News First.
After the chaos came the silence. Families missing members, kids waiting for parents who never came home. Some of those taken had lived in the U.S. for decades. They worked, paid taxes, had children born here, and in the span of a few hours, they were gone. Volunteers offered legal aid. Churches opened their doors, but the trauma, for many, had already taken root.
Protesters set off fireworks as law enforcement break up an anti-ICE rally in Brookhaven. We watched as officers physically moved a woman from the area. Brookhaven police say in addition to lighting the fireworks, the protesters threw rocks, damaging 3 squad cars by smashing their windows. Police arrested 6 people and used tear gas to disperse the crowd. Earlier, before the time organizers and police agreed the protest would come to an end, the crowd chanted in both English and Spanish, many of them waving Mexican flags.
Supporters of the raid say this is what accountability looks like, but opponents argue it crossed a moral and legal line. Using armed teams to arrest nonviolent people inside a shopping mall has sparked a national debate. Some call it necessary enforcement. Others call it cruelty. Either way, the message is clear. Immigration enforcement is evolving, and fast. And if this is just the beginning, what comes next may be even harder to ignore.
Listen.
I'm not opposed to people who come here illegally but want to live a better life and live the American dream. And there's people that have lived here for decades that have still not become U.S. citizens who are in the process of being deported, and they don't deserve that. They deserve to be here with their families and live a happy life, you know, and work and live in peace and prosperity.
Now, he describes the situation as not one of fear, but of anxiety, and he's not the only one here lined up this morning here in the rain, in the cold. Again, these actions follow President Trump's return to the White House, as we all know, which has been marked by immigration executive orders. Meanwhile, advocacy groups have really been pushing on behalf of families and particularly children, asking for more transparency and fairness throughout the course of this process. We'll continue to follow in Metro Atlanta. Liza Lucas, 11 Alive News, sending it back to you.
Liza, thank you. The Trump administration launched an immigration enforcement blitz in Chicago Sunday.
The raid in Atlanta ignited an ethical firestorm over how far immigration enforcement should go. Critics blasted the use of SWAT teams against nonviolent individuals in a public shopping mall, calling the tactics extreme, even dehumanizing. They argue it reflects a shift toward more invasive, militarized strategies, ones that endanger both human rights and public trust. Supporters, however, say tough measures are needed to uphold the law. At its core, the debate is about more than immigration. It's about the line between order and overreach, and whether this operation crosses.
Some of those right now, including ring camera video taken from here in Georgia over the weekend. You can see ICE officials in the process of arresting a man in Lilburn. Now, we don't know the details of this particular case, but we understand agents are focusing on people who are wearing immigration GPS monitors or ankle monitors. It appears the man in this video actually shows a monitor to those agents. Meanwhile, here outside the Atlanta ICE field office, we actually just spoke to a local father, Javier, who is worried about his wife's status. She's set to have a hearing next year. They have 4 kids, and her case, again, is not going to go for a judge for some time now. So he's here at the office this morning to get some clarity on the situation. Here's
The mall raid didn't just shake families. It shook the local economy. Businesses were blindsided, stores shuttered, crowds fled. What should have been a record retail weekend became hours of chaos and uncertainty. Many employees didn't know if they'd be detained or if they'd even be able to come back to work. Some stores bounced back, others didn't. And for many tied to the mall, the fallout wasn't just financial, it was reputational. Being associated with the raid left a scar that, for some, still hasn't healed.
Now, federal immigration raids are happening across the country, including right here in Atlanta. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents making several arrests in the area Sunday.
Atlanta News First Sarah Hammond is live right now from the ICE field office in downtown Atlanta. Sarah, what can you tell us about these raids and what's to come?
An ICE spokesperson says the arrests are part of enhanced targeted operations, and just yesterday, ICE agents made 956 arrests across the country, according to the agency. And again, those are national numbers. But ICE told Atlanta News First partner station Telemundo Atlanta arrests took place near Buford Highway in Chamblee and in Brookhaven. And one church pastor told Telemundo ICE agents came to the church looking for a specific member wearing a monitor. They were stopped by a door code and waited for the man to come out. Now, the arrests are part of an offensive launched by President Donald Trump's administration to detain and deport undocumented immigrants. But Georgia's NAACP President Gerald Briggs says he wants to see the focus of this administration elsewhere.
The ICE operation at Atlanta's mall marked a turning point, not just in size, but in symbolism. It happened on Black Friday, the peak of American consumer life. That timing wasn't accidental. It was a signal. No day is off limits. No place is untouchable. Experts say this approach may become the norm. Raids in crowded public spaces that blur the line between law enforcement and civil rights. The bigger fear? That this was only a preview of what's coming as immigration policy continues to harden.
You will be arrested.
Protesters set off fireworks as law enforcement break up an anti-ICE rally in Brookhaven. We watched as officers physically moved a woman from the area. Brookhaven police say in addition to lighting the fireworks, the protesters threw rocks, damaging 3 squad cars by smashing their windows. Police arrested 6 people and used tear gas to disperse the crowd. Earlier, before the time organizers and police agreed the protest would come to an end, the crowd chanted in both English and Spanish, many of them waving Mexican flags.
They deported my grandpa last night. They raided his house for no reason.
This man, who is a U.S. citizen, came out because after working here for 25 years, his grandfather was just deported.
My people are protesting, and I'm so proud of them because at the end of the day, these people don't know what we're going through, struggling, building houses, cutting everybody's grass, making this America rich.
One of those who was arrested, that took place earlier, and we were told by Brookhaven police that was because he kept repeatedly going out onto the street despite repeatedly being told not to do so. We don't know the circumstances surrounding the other 5 arrests. Hopefully we'll be able to get some information from police and be able to bring that to you guys later on in the day. Reporting live from Brookhaven, Georgia, I'm Mark Teichner for Live Now from Fox.
The SWAT raid at the Atlanta Mall wasn't just an event. It was a moment of reckoning. It tore apart families, disrupted communities, and forced the country to face a question it can no longer ignore. How far is too far? Some say the raid was effective. Others call it dangerous. Either way, it's now a precedent. And if this becomes the playbook moving forward, Americans everywhere, citizens or not, should be paying attention. Subscribe for more reporting as we continue to follow the fallout from this operation and others like it.